Hi, friends, and welcome to M&M Hour with Melissa and my dear friend Mandy Slutsker. Mandy, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me again.
Of course, people love our M&M Hour. I get a lot of good feedback about it. It gets a lot of downloads. So thank you all. I'm glad they love us together. For those of you who are listening to this right now, please go to Mandy's podcast for part 1 of our M&M Hour. That podcast will be out Sunday, December 1st. And we talked about VPR being done. We talked about Real Housewives of Potomac, some mental health issues there, Beverly Hills. We had a wonderful discussion. So please go over and check that out. And today, Mandy and I, we are going to talk about Real Housewives of Potomac and a little bit of OC, the third part of the reunion, which, was a lot.
Oh boy, was it ever.
All right, let us get right into it. Let's start. Should we start with OC? Maybe we should.
Sure.
Let's start with OC because oh my gosh. I never want to see Alexis or Johnny J on my screen ever again. And I think that's pretty unanimous across the Bravoverse, Mandy. How do you feel about that?
I mean, they've taken the story as far as it can go. It's concluded. They have what did she settle with him on the lawsuit?
They settled.
So there's nothing else to do or say. Like, they should go get married. They should be happy together and be off our screens. I don't think it's healthy for them. I don't think it's smart. And Alexis she was like a one-trick pony this season. She wasn't listening to any advice that others were giving her, even just going into the reunion when Tamra was like, don't speak for him. Right. Talk about yourself. Meanwhile, she has like a list of grievances that he's told her, and she spends the entire of her part of the reunion sharing his views. Mm-hmm. And what does she think and feel about everything?
Well, that's the problem. I think Alexis is a tool for the patriarchy, and she just does not understand how to not be that. She is a human megaphone for these men who are also tools, by the way. Like, pick better men, which that was so funny at the end, how Gina said that to Shannon. She's like, pick better men. And I'm like, yes. Snaps to Gina. Everyone get a friend like Gina, because I think that, well, we'll get to this, but I think that she and Andy actually kind of played a pivotal role in the outcome that we saw of the last reunion. Do you agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I think they might have a career as like a group therapist, because seriously, those are skills that are not easy. I love groups. I lead groups. I'm very good at it, but that's because I'm bossy and assertive. And, so it takes a special person to do that. And I think they did a good job. But when Tamra is giving you feedback that you don't even take, there's a real serious problem there. That's why.
I was thinking about it earlier today. Like, what's the best phrase I can use to describe Alexis Bellino? And at this point, I do appreciate the megaphone. So but she also reminds me of like a narcissistic, like, barnacle. So she finds a narcissist and she like hitches a ride, right? And she like becomes one, right, with them. But she's still her own entity, but like you kind of can't tell the difference,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a barnacle on a turtle's back. Like, it's, the turtle doesn't even know it's there half the time, probably. Can they even see it? And I feel like John, and the same with Jim Bellino, always think they're right, have an attitude and ego about themselves. And she's just there to serve. She's just there to become part of them, to have her personality mesh with them. Her entire personality seems to shift depending on who she's with. It's just this like strong defense of whoever the narcissist of the day is, right?
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me that she has not learned by this point in her life, especially after a divorce from someone like Jim Bellino.
Right.
Shannon did something very, very smart. After the DUI, when she was getting therapy, she said, I want to know why I keep choosing men,
right,
that are not good to me.
Right.
Right. So her first husband, now it's John, who came across fine for most of the time of their relationship on camera. But there was stuff brewing underneath the surface. And now we kind of see who he really is after this season and the types of decisions he's decided to make. And so she's like, I'm not going to date for a while. I actually want to figure out why I gravitate towards these men and figure out how to stop it.
Right.
And I thought that was such a smart question.
It is. But that's why Shannon is in a better place. She's getting to be in a better place. Whereas Alexis is a good example of someone who is just completely has fingers in their ears and it's like, la, 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 la. She does not, she absolutely refuses to understand her role that she plays in picking these men and being their mouthpiece and their megaphone and all of this stuff. But it's so funny because your joke about like being like a barnacle, like they call that something in biology and I'm blanking on it. It's a parasitic relationship.
Yeah, I was going to say it's either symbiotic or parasitic or
one of those. Yes.
But I don't think she's parasitic. I think she helps them. So it's actually symbiotic where like she gets something, she gets a personality out of it because she doesn't have one on her own, and they get a mouthpiece.
Yes. And, a gorgeous one at that. Alexis is a beautiful woman.
Oh, she's beautiful. Yeah.
And, the thing about Alexis is that because she doesn't do a lot of thinking for herself, she doesn't. She's not a critical thinker because if she was, she would be picking different men. She is destined to repeat the same patterns that she's unwilling to look at. And so for me, it's like you came into this reunion, you had one last shot. Tamara told you, don't do this. You did what she told you not to do. And now you're a pariah. And you post after the reunion that you don't know why. Girl, get a grip. Get a therapist, get a grip, and get a clue. Because this woman needs to understand what is going on with her picker. It's off. And Shannon's picker, she's working on it. And that's literally the best that we could hope for, right?
Did you also catch that Gina said to Shannon, you've really changed your relationship with alcohol?
Yes. Yes.
I thought that was remarkable to come from someone who's sober.
Absolutely. And to come from someone who literally got sober because she didn't want to be Shannon. Gina said that earlier in the season. She's like, I had to reevaluate my relationship with alcohol because I didn't want to be Shannon in 20 years. And so I think that for what Shannon did to Gina, and now for Gina to be able to have grace for Shannon shows how amazing Gina is, because that does take a big person, a mature person who's emotionally mature and steady on their feet. But it also shows that nobody knows Shannon like these people, right? Her friends, her cast. And so I'm going to follow Gina's lead. If Gina feels that Shannon is changing her relationship with alcohol, then she's changing it, because Gina's not going to say stuff that is not true to her.
And Shannon was asked in an interview recently, like, who are you closest to on the cast right now? And she said Gina. And she said, and Emily, but like Gina.
Right. Right. I mean, so I want to know how you feel about this. I was disappointed with Emily. I think she wrote a little bit too hard for Tamara and for Heather, and it didn't necessarily make her look great. But I think she had to do that because there's been, so going to the Heather and Katie babysitting argument, did you see on social media after the reunion a babysitter? You didn't see this. Okay.
No,
so
I don't see anything.
You're better off. You are better off, honey.
I miss it all.
Well, a babysitter came forth to say, and this is all alleged.
A babysitter of Emily's kids?
Of Emily's kids.
Oh, okay.
Came forth and said, when I babysat those kids, Annabelle, who is the oldest daughter, would give me the tea. They would talk about how mean Heather is. Like, this person said, that's what's happened. Now, but again, you can't trust social media. So who knows if that's true or not. But I think that Emily felt painted into a corner because it's like, well, I don't want to act like my kids would have said this, which here's the thing. Kids listen to everything.
Yeah, I didn't think whatever her kid said was terrible at all. I was like, okay.
I didn't either.
Like, they're just repeating something they may have heard at one point when you were angry. That is not that inappropriate to me. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, but then in course correcting, I feel like Emily course corrected and went too far and sided with Heather because like Heather just needed an ally. I've never seen a newbie get under Heather's skin so much as Katie does. Never
great.
in my life. Honestly, I am loving it.
And I don't think everything that Katie says makes sense either. Like, I am a little bit more on the side of like, hey, not everything you say adds up.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you're talking about it. Like, when someone has to explain every part of their life because it's not clear based on obvious things, like something might be a little off, but I like her on the show. It'll be interesting to see her and Jen's friendship because she is worried for Jen about Ryan. They all were. They all had that same concern.
Right.
Katie was just kinder about it, right? And letting her friend make her own choices the way that she makes her own
friends
choices.
Also real friends do that. It's like you can't just cut someone off for doing something that you don't agree with. How many times have you or I witnessed someone we love in a relationship that we're like, nah, man, that's not good. And they have to find out the hard way. Like the only way humans learn is by falling flat on your face and then getting up and learning the lesson. And I believe if we don't learn the lesson, we keep smacking our face on the ground, which is literally what Alexis perpetually does. And she's just refusing to learn the damn lesson. It's like, girl, learn it already.
But sometimes we're wrong. Like sometimes we think someone's bad or that people are bad together, and then they end up proving us, like couples that get together, maybe Whitney and Justin on Salt Lake. Like anyone who starts a relationship through an affair when they're both married, I feel like that's not a great basis to start a relationship. And I don't know that a marriage could be healthy if it formed that way. But like, look at them proving us wrong year after year, happy, healthy, communicative, like all the things. So I feel like there's we could find out that Ryan and Jen actually are, however many years from now, like great for each other. So I'll leave that possibility open, but he seems very shady. I hope he's terrified by how close he got to getting in trouble with the feds. And
I don't think he is. I don't think he is.
I don't think he is either. He's so
bold.
Yeah, he's so bold.
He's so bold. And the swagger is like, bruh, you narrowly escaped federal charges by the skin of your damn teeth. And you are still going to be out here swinging that dick around? That is crazy to me. That says something about who he is as a person. And so for me, I know who Ryan is. When I listen to my gut is never wrong. Never.
Can we go back to, was it you and I talking about Todd and Bronwyn? And I said my gut told me Todd was not good for Bronwyn. Or was that somebody?
Yep.
Yeah. I was like,
and
I don't know.
That's right.
Something was off with him and how it wasn't just what he said, it's how she reacted to what he said. Yes. I was like, that dynamic is not healthy. It's unbalanced.
Yes.
And I got a lot of shit from people talking about how I think 30-year age gap marriages are weird. And I've never seen one that I think is healthy. And I stand on that. I've literally never seen one where I'm like, ooh, that looks healthy, right? You can see it at 18 years, 15 years, maybe 20 years, but like 30, 27, there's just something off.
Justice for Mandy, because here's what's so funny. I talked about this
opinion.
That's my opinion. Justice for you, though, because I did joke last week when I talked about Salt Lake City. I talked about their dynamic on the podcast. I talked about that I think it is absolutely awful. She has a fawn response. It's like this weird father-daughter it's just not good. And people on Instagram are like, Melissa, you're so mean. How do you know? You only watch 15 minutes. And it's like, what people don't understand sometimes is when you have intuition about certain things, when you're in touch with those things, having an opinion, people are always going to have problems and they're going to say, like, gaslight us, like, oh, you're mean or this or that. And it's like, no, maybe we just have our fingers on the pulse of what this relationship is. And maybe we don't. But to me, their dynamic is painfully obvious that it is so inappropriate and just like emotional gatekeeping, emotional neglect. He is, a man of a certain age who is allergic to emotions and feels Bronwyn needs to be too. And it's like, nah, man, that is not how to have a healthy relationship.
Do I agree with him and the things he was saying? Yes, I do. I think it's unbecoming of people to scream at each other. I think it's not normal. But this dynamic that they create for housewives is not normal. They create a situation in which people have conflict and then force them to be together after. When you and I have conflict with people, we take space. We don't immediately go on a trip with them, right? Where we know that it's going to blow up. And so, yes, I agree. Like screaming at each other and that kind of behavior. And I'm sure it went on for many hours. I'm sure it wasn't just a couple minutes. Like it's a lot. I wouldn't want to be around it. I would probably also leave. So I don't blame his reaction to being around that. But how he treated her, that he was like disappointed in her, and how it's more like how she reacted. Because if he said that and she was like, oh, shut the fuck up. And then they were like, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a different dynamic. It's the dynamic of her getting small when he gets large.
Correct. And what I will disagree with you on is the fact that, and I address this too in my podcast, which is our partners, it's appropriate to say, you were acting out of character. What's that about, right? This is not the character that I know of you, right? This is different. What's up with that? That's not what he said. He barked at her about it's not becoming and, blah, blah, blah. And so if he was really concerned, there would have been a way to talk about that. I don't think it was concern. I think he cares a lot about what people think. And what I called it was misogynistic gaslighting, which is women are told to be, we're all supposed to be demure and very mindful and sweet and quiet. And God forbid you have this loud ass voice and tell people what's up. So I think that that's a real problem that he has. And it makes me want to know more about her dynamic growing up, because it tells me that she didn't feel good about herself. Like she didn't feel good enough about herself to say, I deserve better than this, because she does. She deserves better than that.
And maybe this will actually make their marriage better by looking at it on camera. I fully believe that is possible, where people can look at themselves and be horrified and see how they come across. We've seen it before a few times. And so we'll see how he reacts and how she reacts to how he reacts. But
You're right.
It'll be interesting to see if he actually shows up at the reunion.
I predict that he won't. And I also predict that he's not going to learn a single thing from this, because I think he has the personality of someone who is very confident and assured in who he is. And he is not changing that for Bronwyn, for Bravo, or for viewers. But TBD, we'll see. So going back to OC, 36 hours after the reunion, we see the ladies get together and we find out that Heather and Tamra have been holding on to this huge secret that John did admit to hearing the accident. And not only did he admit to hearing the accident, he admitted to initially going to see what was happening, and then his adult daughter stopped him, said that she would go look, and then she looked and claimed that Shannon was gone. And so what?
Wait, I don't remember that. I thought she just said, like, it's not good. Don't go.
She did, but then what I heard, and listen, listeners, let us know.
No, because
I could be wrong too.
I could have forgotten.
But I heard that the daughter went to go look to go find Shannon, and then saw her pull away, which we know now she pulled away, but just up the street, and then police were called. And
I see. Yes.
So the implication here is two things that Bravo fans should be pissed about, in my opinion, is that number one, Heather and Tamra knew this information for 7 months. 7 months. And just didn't think to say it until after the reunion? That makes no sense, number one. But number two, the implication here is that John and his daughter absolutely knew that she crashed and that maybe she was hurt, and just went back in the house and pretended they didn't know what was going on. And that is who this person is.
Which is terrible, but I also will play devil's advocate in that they also said that she had hit him. And I believe that if she was very drunk, you can really hurt someone and it can really scare someone when it gets physical, especially if he was not the one being physical. So I could see the daughter saying like, she hit you, like this is not a healthy dynamic, like don't engage further. And that being like, someone else will help, right? I do think he should have, but if he's also drunk,
911.
Yes,
well, right,
that's what I think should have happened.
Right.
But if he's also drunk, it's also, you're not making good decisions. Right. And who knows if the daughter's been drinking, like who knows what their mind was. I do think he should have, like, upon hearing a crash, the instinct should be to call 911, even if it's not, I don't want to engage with this person because we just had this terrible argument and it got physical and I don't feel safe, or I don't think it's like the right situation to engage. So him not going outside, I don't think is the most terrible thing, especially after hearing about the violence.
Right.
But not doing anything, apparently, that's where it seems like a little bit like, oh God.
Yeah, that's and you're right. That is my main problem. And to Shannon's credit, when the women were talking to her about this, Tamara kind of whispered it in her ear as if they weren't mic'd. And it's like, God. But, and Shannon literally, you could tell she was like, yeah, they said that I punched him. And I don't remember. Like, she was so honest about that. I think maybe that's one of the more honest moments that I've seen from her. There was no trying to deny or get out of it. And in fact, she had a healthy emotional reaction, which was she cried and she's like, am I a shitty person? Like, am I this terrible? Like, I may have punched him and I caused all these problems. And apparently there was footage of her driving away and almost, something happening with the daughter. Her reaction tells me that she is trying to better herself, right? She's not saying, no, this didn't happen, or trying to cover up. And so that shows her character, right? That she's willing to say, okay, I screwed up. And yes, let me talk about this openly. But for John and his daughter, the rhetoric around this is that likely all parties were very intoxicated. Likely it wasn't just Shannon who was acting a fool. And likely none of them wanted to be in front of police officers.
Yeah, that's sort of what Yeah, the whole thing was bad.
It's bad. But given that, it's like, if you say you love this woman 2 months prior to meeting Alexis, because that's what the text showed at the reunion, you don't listen to someone you love crash and then just be like, you know what? I'm out of it. Someone else will help. It's like, you got to do something, even if you don't show up yourself. And so I think that for me, John really showed who he was this point, and I am grateful for that. But what do you make of the women not saying a goddamn word for 7 freaking months? What do you make of that?
Well, I get that they didn't say it. Maybe they haven't hung out with Shannon, but to not say it on the reunion, that's where I thought the problem was. They should have said it. It should have come out on the reunion. I don't know if they told her after the reunion and then producers got wind of it and they said, we are going to mic up. We're going to show something because this is something that was not shown, that, you guys should bring this to camera. I don't know if it was that, but I think Heather and Tamara were afraid of getting on further on the bad side of the audience.
I agree.
I think that's sort of their reaction, and they wanted to tread lightly with the Shannon stuff. They wanted to show her support during the reunion, and they didn't want to bring up anything that could make them look bad, such as holding on to information like this, or that could potentially also upset her. Like, I think they're like, she's been through a lot. This has been a shitty season for her. We can recognize that. Like, maybe she just doesn't need to know this. But the problem is 2 of them heard it, and it's not just one person. One person can hold in a secret. 2 can't. So, especially
2
housewives.
people, exactly. One person holding a secret is a secret. 2 people holding on to it is a conspiracy. And I don't like that. And if I'm being honest, I feel that this whole filming after the filming was Heather and Tamara trying to get the audience back on their side.
Yeah.
I felt it was completely manipulative. I did not like any of it. And I was confused as to why Shannon wasn't mad. I'm like, why is she not angry?
Because I think she's still processing it. I also think, just the fact that she got to the place where she could hug Tamara at the reunion, but then did mention like, well, my therapist says this is toxic. Like, wait until she has multiple therapy sessions and can, go through, and in her mind, so many things are going on that day. It's so emotional. She has to see Alexis again. She has to see footage of John saying things like he was never with anyone the year before he was with Alexis, even though that's not true.
Right.
Right. I think her mind was all over the place.
That makes sense.
I don't blame her for anything that happened at that reunion. I think she is like not processed at that point, had not processed anything, and was spending more of her time, as you said, focusing on how bad she was and like her behavior as opposed to like their behavior, because she was so horrified about her behavior, which is
that's such a good point.
In stark contrast to Karen Huger, who has shown we have seen Shannon be so honest about this DUI, be so honest about exactly how it happened, when it happened, the fact that she revved the engine because she was angry. Like, she's giving us details. We know this is the mindset that she was in, and she shared what happened. With Karen, we literally only know details from the police report and all of the charges, and she is just like not talking and instructing Rain to not talk, and then saying, well, like, we hope this will wrap up soon. So this was filmed in June of 2024. We are in November of 2024, and we are still not wrapped up, right? So
we aren't.
Clearly, this is not something that like is super innocent and obvious that it should be thrown out. I really am disappointed in Karen. I don't know what negative could come of admitting something that is clear with evidence. Like, yes, this happened. It was my fault. And then, maybe then she actually has to go through a treatment program, right? Second DUI, driving without a license or without a registration. Like, maybe she doesn't want to face the consequences of admitting it. But
maybe
she certainly,
she doesn't, or she definitely doesn't.
Well, she doesn't. But how does she think she can get away with it? Is that sort of
delusion? Delusion. Seriously, the one thing I can tell you is when people would come in to inpatient rehab, this is a good transition and we'll talk about Potomac, because I have all the details on Karen. I have the charges. I have what happened. I have it all, honey. So we'll talk about that. But alcohol intoxication makes you delusional. It makes you out of touch, and, it does a whole bunch of things to your brain. And so when chronically used over time, I really have witnessed people coming into treatment that while they're detoxing, your brain is not in reality. Like, you are not on planet Earth with us right now. And then they get sober, and then they work on themselves, and it's like, oh, you're back. Welcome. I feel that Karen, how do I say this?
She's like out to lunch.
Yeah. She's out to lunch because of, I believe, the excessive alcohol use over time. Because one thing you can't do is when you're consistently using alcohol, you can't be honest with yourself. You can't. I mean, if you're using alcohol recreationally and appropriately and you don't have a problem with it, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have an issue with alcohol and use over time like this, which it would indicate that she's continued her use, considering this is her second DUI that she's been caught for, and she admitted in the last episode to getting behind the wheel intoxicated and just never getting caught.
And also being like, well, what did I pull over? I was like, you're not supposed to get in the car to begin with. What is wrong with you?
Delusion. All right, so let's talk about that.
Let's chat Potomac.
All right, so let me give you all a little down low about what is going on with Karen. Have never been a fan of Karen Huger. Never in my life.
Love her.
I know. And when you said that, I was always like, girl, what? But
she's funny. Very few people are funny like that. She's very funny.
Ugh. All right. I hear you. Listen.
And typically her delusion never harmed anyone. When she's like, wow, my candle's 3-wick, but yours is 1-wick. So it's completely different brands. Like, that's not harmful. That's effing hilarious. So, I will stand behind. I think she's one of the funniest housewives we've ever had. However, this season, not great.
Okay, fair enough. And listen, Eminem, we have to disagree on some stuff. We can't always be in agreement. That's what makes us great. So We watched Karen prepare to go to court regarding her DUI, and we saw that the case was postponed, which the lawyer, that was the goal. He said this was the goal. They wanted to have time to, quote unquote, build their case. Let me explain what building this case means. In July, Karen's lawyers filed a request to dismiss the case, which was denied. Karen was charged with several offenses, which, by the way, the DUI, the arrest was March 19th, 2024. And here were the charges: reckless driving, driving while under the influence, driving while impaired with alcohol, driving with suspended registration, and failure to notify the administration of a change to her address within 30 days. That's a lot of charges. And the court filing stated that when police pulled Karen over, they found 2 beers in her Maserati, which people find hilarious, by the way, that the Grand Dame drinks beer. And my response to that is any alcohol will do for people who overutilize alcohol. You know, she seems like that would be beneath her, but alcohol is alcohol and it gets you drunk. I've had people resort to drinking mouthwash, if I'm being honest. So, you know, it doesn't matter. But anyway, they found her Maserati off of the road in a grassy area with airbags deployed, which is another important detail, because I've been in an accident and I had airbags deployed once and I totaled my car. And if your airbags are deploying, that means it's really significant. Officers additionally observed Karen unsteady on her feet, swaying, stumbling, and slurring her speech. Now, this is the part that I found on the internet that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. There was a caller who called 911 who was there, or I think he lived like across the street or something like that. Encountered Karen, spoke to officers on the scene, and indicated that prior to police arrival, Karen appeared confused and the caller smelled alcohol when interacting with the defendant. A couple other important details here. Karen's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the case, claiming that Karen was incriminated during a custodial interrogation without being read her Miranda rights. So what does this mean? Karen confessed to EMTs within earshot of police that she was driving drunk. That's what that means. She literally confessed and then was trying to get off on a technicality.
Which isn't a technicality. It's not. You don't have to be read your Miranda rights if you're not being arrested.
Exactly. Right. Right. Exactly. And so that they were trying to even like bend time and space continuum to get it off on technicality, which you're right, it's not. And the defendant's statements made during this time were free and voluntary and were stated out loud while in the presence of police officers. So that's why that didn't get thrown out. Her legal team also argued that the evidence against her was obtained through an illegal search and seizure. So what this means is that Karen's team is trying to say, well, the beer cans flew out of the car and you searched the area of the accident and found those illegally. It's crazy making.
And I mean, this is what people do in the legal system to like keep delaying stuff. This is why everything takes forever.
Yeah. And to your point, so the judge keeps rejecting all these requests and her jury trial is set for December, I think 17th. Either the 17th or the 24th. The trial for sure, as of my notes, it was set for the 24th, but then I saw that maybe it was moved up to December 17th.
Yeah, the 24th doesn't make sense. It's Christmas Eve, and I think that's a federal holiday.
Yes, I think you're right too. So perhaps that was when it was set for, or maybe I read the wrong thing, but either way, it's set for December. To me, it explains why she can't or won't discuss this on the show, because she doesn't want to self-incriminate.
Yeah.
But you've already self-incriminated by telling police officers that you were driving drunk.
Yeah. I mean, there's the, if you are found at the scene of a crime and airbags are deployed and you've run your car into a tree in a ditch and you were drunk, that's all the evidence you need of a DUI. Like, it's not that hard. 30 days of not notifying address. I think everyone has been guilty of that. Probably if you move or you like don't update your license. Mm-hmm. Not having a registration is insane because it's so cheap.
Insane.
And they notify you, like the county notifies you. They tell you to do it and you get multiple reminders. Right. I get the reminders via email in addition to by paper. So to not pay your registration fee, get the tags and put the tags on your car to be visible is wacky.
That's bonkers. That's a huge part of adulting. If you're going to drive, you have to have basic license, insurance, and registration. It's super basic. Mm-hmm. And I just think that she thinks that she's exempt. People who, in my experience, struggle with overutilizing alcohol, there's a delusional, like, I'm special, the rules don't apply to me. And that is, I feel like, what we're seeing with Karen, and it's a really gross look, and it's very sad.
Yeah, no, it sucks. I hate watching the side of her. I think, yeah, she thinks like, oh, I was really sad about my parents dying. It was around the anniversary of their death. Like, yes, a lot of people unfortunately have had parents die and also drink too much around the anniversary of the death or do something. But like,
Right.
you got behind a car, you got into a car and you put not just yourself at risk, but the community at risk. And
Yeah.
it's not about you anymore. It's about what you did to harm other people or potentially harm. And she's very lucky that there weren't people that were harmed other
Beyond.
than allegedly her. Like, very lucky. And so,
Beyond.
it's frustrating. I also think that if you like admit guilt, you get like less, they can like plead down, right? You plead guilty and then you get rid of some of the charges and you agree to complete like inpatient rehab or outpatient rehab or whatever the stuff is, pay fine, maybe go to jail. I don't know, but like probably not for a very long time, and like, I just don't know why you wouldn't go for that versus if you're found guilty after like having used government resources to fight this, right? So this makes the state and have to bring the charges against her and fight those charges rather than her just pleading. That uses a lot of resources and then,
so many,
right?
time,
and then
money, like
everything
beyond. Yeah.
And so they're going to be pissed, and the judge is going to have a much harsher, if she's found guilty, a much harsher punishment than
For sure.
had she pled guilty or pled no contest or whatever that means.
Judges hate when you waste their time. When you take a case to court that is frivolous, family court cases are backed. Well, I mean, it's a nightmare of a system. My interpretation of this is that Karen just doesn't want to stop. I don't think she's ready. I don't think she's, experienced enough pain yet to say, you know what, this is an issue. And so she's certainly not going to be willing to take accountability and stop drinking if that's not what she wants to do, which tells me that alcohol really has some grips on her. And, she deserves, listen, she's a human being. She deserves to be happy. And like Alexis, I hope that Karen doesn't need to keep falling flat on her face to learn these lessons, because eventually someone's going to get hurt. And that is a tragedy. That grief and hard times are not an excuse to behave like an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you lost your mother. You've had a lot of grief. I've had a ton of grief. And it is not an excuse to be like, you know what? I'm just going to sling my pain all over the place. And who gives a shit how it impacts people? That's what selfish people do. But
yeah, you have to find ways that don't harm other people.
That's right.
And ideally don't harm yourself either.
Well, ideally, yes. Because, again, Karen deserves happiness. Like, we don't want her to be hurt either. We don't need anyone getting hurt. But let's talk about the Mia Gordon mental health of it all, because we did talk about that on your podcast. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about my views on that, because I was really upset about it. So to give listeners an idea, we talked on your podcast about his bipolar disorder. And can you share with folks what your feelings were about that?
My feelings was he did not appear obviously manic in the scene with him and Ink. He seemed just angry, and his anger came across, but he didn't seem manic. So when she was retelling that story to the women at the GNA event, I felt like she was lying. She's saying, oh, he's manic, and that's why there was an argument, as opposed to just he's allowed to be angry and have emotions and show those emotions. I think it's shitty to do around the kids, but maybe he's like, you guys pushed me into this. You lured me here with cameras. You want to have a confrontation. Fine, here's a confrontation.
I feel your instincts here are spot on, because the way that I viewed this, I was really angry at Mia and Jacqueline.
Yes.
Jacqueline made a comment about how like Gordon is lucky that she loves him. And it's like, one thing I said on your pod that I'll say again, because it's important, is that people with mental health issues are humans and worthy and deserving of love and respect. And when someone acts out of character due to untreated mental health, which it certainly sounds like Gordon has had struggled with that in the past, right? In manic episodes, you brought up locking her in a room, yelling and things like that. But I have compassion for Gordon because, bipolar 1 disorder, I just want to explain to people is that bipolar 1, it's a very challenging mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of high highs and low lows, and there can also be mixed. So you can have a manic episode and have a depressive episode, number one, and you can have mixed episodes. And there's something called cyclothymia where it's like lesser peaks and valleys, but it's still very roller coastery up and down. And there's a book that I always recommend to people. It's called An Unquiet Mind. I think it's by Kay Redfield James, who she shares her life-altering experience with bipolar 1 disorder and manic episodes. It is disabling. It is life-altering. It is scary. I've treated people in manic episodes. It's scary for loved ones, and no one suffers more than the person. So I guess what I'm just saying is I feel that Mia is using Gordon's mental health issues to skirt her own accountability because she doesn't want to look at her role in this relationship, number one, and she doesn't want to take accountability for the fact that Gordon has every right to be pissed. She was married to him for 11 years, and then now all of a sudden, Inc. has always been her man, according to her, and now he might be the father of one of her children. And it's like, do you not think that Gordon may be a little upset that you're making a fool of him on live television?
Do you think it's real? Like, do you think she's making it all up just for TV? Like, she's such a liar. She just is always saying things and then not being true, and her being like, like,
I know. Remember when she did that with cancer?
Yeah.
At the beginning of last season, it was like she said that she had
2 seasons ago. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Whatever it was. But they showed the flashback to all these things that she really struggles to be truthful about. Yeah. So it's a super valid question.
She had a health issue that she was unsure what it was, and she was getting a lot of testing, and cancer was a potential that I think they ruled out.
Sure
right?
did. Yep.
But you need to make that clear that we're testing for it. Don't have it, right? Testing, we're not sure. And then when you get the results, that was ruled out. We're figuring out what else it is. So she's just not clear in how she talks. She is so used to lying. I think she's had to lie to survive in her life. And so I think it's just become second nature. What's super weird to me is Jacqueline being so rah-rah for Mia after all the things Mia has put Jacqueline through too. And so this week when I think it's Giselle, and Giselle always asks questions without sharing her life much, but
right.
I get that's annoying. But when she's like, Mia, you were crying to us about this, and in less than 24 hours, you posted pictures on your Instagram feed that made it look like everything was okay between Inc. and Gordon. What's going on? And Mia and Jacqueline's reaction is like, oh, well, she's, doesn't even have one man. And look at, you've got like 3 or 4 or something. Like, she's jealous of you. And that's why she's bringing it up. It's like, no, Mia, what you're saying doesn't actually add up. And so that's, her credibility is on the line. And I was on Pet Shop Boys podcast, My Life on the B List. And, we talked about the Maury, what do we call it? Maury Povich, like, ification of the Real Housewives of Potomac, and like how it does feel like a bit gross. And
it feels so gross. This is a child's life we're talking about. What I really have a problem with is the lack of consent from this child.
Yeah.
You are talking about this child's paternity without consent, and that is egregious. Egregious, number one. And number two, Jacqueline and Mia have a very unhealthy relationship. First of all, it sounds like they've had a romantic relationship before, and which is, that's not an issue. But what I
don't know
if
they just made that up, though, because at one point they were like, oh, we just made it up. Like, I think they were a few, so who knows? Like,
who knows?
She's just not she's never been consistent, so it's complicated with her.
They're both, I think what you're saying is they're not reliable narrators. That's what we would call it.
Narrators.
In my little in my notes, my DAP notes, I would say not a reliable narrator.
One other thing I'd like to say about this week's episode of Potomac, though, is, okay, I'm getting to like Wendy this season for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because not for the first time. I loved her on her first season. And then she kept showing us that she's not that person over and over and over in many different ways. And I'm like, just show me who you are. I guarantee I'll like you if you just show me who you actually are. And I feel like she's showing us who she is. But, you know, throwing a massive birthday party where like you go out of your way to like arrive in a car boat thing on somebody else's birthday.
On Ashley's literal
birthday. And then not acknowledging Ashley at all. I mean, it is like, is it hilarious? Like, it is a little bit funny. And it would be funnier if it was like Giselle and Karen, you know, because like their dynamic is so funny.
Yeah.
But wow. You know, and I think Ashley's getting a little annoyed. Like, oh God, this is my actual birthday. I'm spending time filming for somebody else, you know?
Mandy, to your point, I was like, am I losing my mind, or did not one person even say to Ashley happy birthday?
No, like they
not
were
even
not.
A mother.
Like she had to be like, I said I was going to wear a rainbow, but then I decided not to. Like she had to keep like hinting to people, like, just so you know, it's my birthday.
I'm like, just fast,
you know, like that felt mean. You know, not on purpose, but Wendy, wow, does she need a lot? She needs
a lot of attention.
She needs a lot of attention. And her mom is, I don't like her mom. I just don't like her.
I don't either.
Just don't like how she talks to her kids. I don't like how she talks to other people. I don't like how she got in a fight on social media. Like, you shouldn't have Twitter. You're older. You should like live your life, you know, keep getting your checks from your daughter or whatever, your Venmo payments from your daughter.
Allowance.
And that was it's cultural. I get it. But like to bring it up on camera while like something, that was the issue. Like, I get it. If it's in your culture to like you then start paying your parents at a certain age, sure, go ahead, girl. Like, I think that's great to show respect for someone who raised you. But the mom she's trying to bring main character
she's doing
energy.
Too much.
She's not the main character. She's been doing too much since she got on the show, making fights that aren't real, all the weird stuff with NECA. I'm never going to get over that. Like, there's room for 2 Nigerian Americans on this show. The fact that, you know, she wouldn't allow for there to be another Nigerian and was super territorial about that. Just, it still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm iffy on Wendy still, but I appreciate her this season more than others, where she's just like, this is who I am and I'm not trying to be anything else. And I'm like, great, stay that way.
Right. Okay, well, one thing before we wrap up that I have to mention is Stacey and TJ.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that poor girl. When he was like berating her like for touching his knee and like making a comment about the flowers. And what did he want? Like, she was off having like a very cute conversation with Ray. Like, was he supposed to be babysat? Like, I don't understand what he expects out of this relationship, non-relationship. Like, is it a relationship and they're dating, but they're not physically intimate, which is a very real relationship. Just like, but it doesn't seem like they've even committed to that. He talks about it as friends.
For people listening, we're talking about TJ and Stacey, how because of he's a devout Catholic or Christian, he doesn't believe in sex before marriage. It sounds like now it wasn't necessarily always that way, perhaps, from what I understand, but I'm not sure. But either way, he identifies as Christian and so does not believe in sex before marriage. However, we see this interesting interaction where Stacey is just like chasing him, and he's just like, couldn't be less interested in her. And what I think is fascinating is what Mandy's referring to at this party. Stacey sits down and TJ literally berates her for leaving him alone. And it's like, what I called it was a king baby temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
Because king baby temper tantrum is where men are like, well, you left me alone. And like, what was she supposed to do? Babysit you? Like, she's not your mom. She's not your keeper. Like, you're a grown adult. Be social. And so she sits down, he berates her, and then he snaps at her, take your hand off me, which I thought was so aggressive. And the flower thing, let me tell the audience. So Stacey asked him if he liked the flowers because she was just trying to she knew he was mad and she was just trying to have conversation. Clapped back, that's a girl question. And I thought, what are you smoking, TJ?
Well, okay. So I think he comes from like a type of Christianity where gender roles are like very important and very distinct. And so him saying like, that's a girl thing, like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
People have said perhaps he's closeted. I'm not going to comment on that, but like that could also be a reason why he reacted that way. I think the not wanting to like touch or anything like that, part of it, if he is like this type of Christian, she's still legally married. And so she's still sort of quote unquote owned by another man. Like that's how I have taken it sometimes. So it like she still has vows and she shouldn't break those vows. And so, and some of them don't even believe in divorce, which is also like, what are you supposed to do? Like if someone decides to divorce you, you just like it's not like both get to decide, right? Sometimes it's just one person. So I think he's kind of like, well, she's not officially. I mean, I have a friend whose husband is very Christian and he started dating her when he was separated. And he said, like, I won't be intimate until my divorce is final. I take my marriage vows seriously. It didn't work out. But I just can't get myself to do that. And I actually think it was great for their relationship because they really got to know each other before. And it was they're married now and it's lovely and very happy and healthy.
Oh, but that's awesome.
He described just kind of like, well, this is a boundary for me and this is why it's a boundary. And, until I am not married, I'm married. Right.
Right. But I feel like the way he went about it was the energy didn't match.
No, the energy is all off with TJ. He's not bringing this like, I've thought about this and this is how I approach relationships. This is how my faith guides me in relationships. It's like a very weird, like we're just friends and we're not going to do anything. But like clearly he's giving her some sort of attention where she thinks it's going to be more than what it is at some point. Right. But I've never heard him say like, oh, well, when your divorce is final. Like he did ask her though, like, where are you at with the divorce? Like he wants to know. And
he does, but it's odd because I feel like like you said, with your friends, they got to know each other, right? They developed an intimacy without physical intimacy. That is definitely not happening here with Stacey and TJ.
Yeah.
To me, TJ is extremely avoidant. He's like, he's not connecting at all. And again, you brought up some very, valid points in terms of his faith and those gender roles. I grew up Catholic and all of that, but I'll be so interested to see more because Stacey, while she seems a little wacky, she seems like a good person who she just deserves better than what she's been given. And so it's one of those situations where I'm just like, ladies, can we stop pretending we're Habitat for Humanity? Because we don't need to fix these men up. No, we don't.
I know.
We are not here to build or fix or whatever, lay the groundwork for their success. Let us stop being Habitat for Humanity. Bloop.
Maybe they actually had a normal relationship-ish. I mean, not physical, but once cameras showed up, he got weird, which I think is like totally makes sense, possibly. Like, I would be interested to know if that's how, like at the reunion, if she's like, he was just really uncomfortable. He didn't want to be seen in this light or that light or these things about his faith. Like he wants to make sure they're very clear to people. It's very important to him. Like that would make more sense. I think there's something else going on. I think we'll figure that out at some point. But I think it's either to do with like his faith or
something else.
Something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mandy, this has been a wonderful episode. Please let everybody know where not only they can find you, where they can find part 1 of this episode.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I always love doing M&M Hour with you. So you can find my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called Is This Real Life with Mandy Slutsker. And you can find me at Mandy Slutsker on Instagram or Twitter. I think I'm on Blue Sky, but I haven't logged in since I first made an account because it just felt like nonprofit talk.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, in the sector, please leave me alone. Like this.
We're going to follow Mandy's lead on that. Okay.
Yeah. So you can send me messages, you can listen to the podcast, and yeah.
Yes. Please go check her out. Please. I will ask everyone to do a great favor is follow both of our podcasts, because people don't realize that following it helps, because podcasting has changed a little bit in terms of downloads. It used to be you would get credit if someone listened for even 30 seconds, but now someone has to download it for your numbers to even matter. So what I will say is please follow our podcast. Please, if you could be so kind, leave a 5-star review. And even though I'm going to be on my break soon, I will still be bringing the episodes of M&M once a month. So look forward to that on my breaks. And for the other episodes, for everyone listening, just check out Spreaker. But thank you so much, Mandy. And I cannot wait to do this again. So, mwah, and please take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Abish therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.